Sheriff Jones, Coroner Bill Harris, Revenue Commissioner Oline Price. Jim, I have to ask, are you still elected official or not?
Yes.
Member of the Lochapoka Town Council, Jim Grau. Anybody, Pat Conover on the council still?
Yes, sir.
Another member of the Lochapoka Council. Imagine that. Am I missing anybody that's an elected official? News media, we have Mike Eads from the OA News and Hannah Lester from the Opelika Observer. We have a policy about allowing public comment from citizens. The commission has set a 3-minute limit. Please come to the podium where everybody can hear you. First up is Robert Ham.
Judge, that's got worked out before the meeting, so I'm not going to speak to it.
All right,
Thank you.
Next is Ernest Griggs. Mr. Griggs, if you're here about our agenda item, we'll have more time then than the 3 minutes now, or do you have a different issue? Okay, come on. Thank you, sir. And Judy Lockhart, same for you. You're on the agenda, so you don't really need to sign in for this. All right, sir. Go ahead.
To the council, thank you very much. And being a preacher, you know, you look back and see all these folks and make you just want to say, but I won't do that. You see my shirt that says Pride in Poker. That's exactly what we have. We have Pride in Poker. It's actually an acronym, PIP, because there's also progress in poker. We're also trying to get stuff picked up in poker. That's a part of the agenda, so we won't bother that. But I would like to tell the council thanks, along with the Commissioner LeGrand, for the grand work, play on words, that's been done in the Lochapoka community, namely Willis Road being paved, and also the paving of 188. There's a question some of the citizens asked me to ask the council. We see that the northern part of 188 is being paved. Are there any plans to pave the southern end? The other question is, they noticed that coming up on some of the county roads, there's a sign that says junction, and as a child, I thought the JCT stood for just cross town, but it's actually junction pointing to the road where, let's say, 188 is, because where I live, I've got 188, 43, and Highway 14. There are no signs pointing to you coming up on that road, and they want to know, is it possible to get signs for that? And also, since I've asked those questions, I know we can't give gifts because there are laws, but I think I can make a lifetime loan to May I tell Commissioner LeGrand, since he's my commissioner, our commissioner, to let him know that we do have pride in poker. And you know the school we represent, I couldn't get it in that color, but that right there may suffice for the time being until we can dye it the right color.
Well, thank you for this long-term loan T-shirt. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Ms. Lockhart, you got something in addition to your agenda item? Okay.
Judge English and to the board, good afternoon. I'm coming to give some comments for a well-done job. I want to thank the board for the paving repeat of Willis Turk Road 57. It's been in process. And as we know now, 188 North is getting paved. Thank you so much. I want to thank Sheriff Jay Jones for providing deputies for the Lochapoka United Methodist Church, distribution of food monthly, probably the third Wednesday from 4 to 6. The deputies that you've sent out, they've done an excellent job. And I thank you in advance for what you're going to do November 3rd for Highway 14, Park Street, and Daylily. Thank you so much. To Mr. Justin Hart, thank you for returning my call and getting things ready for Daylily Street for November 3rd. We look forward to having the voting at the Family Enrichment Center, but that road is needing something on Daylily. Thank you so much. Last but not least, the dumpster that's on 61, the road that goes to the high school. I came and complained about 4 years ago. I know y'all remember that. But I also came back to tell you the great job that has been done. And 61 dumpster looks good. You can come by there in the morning, it's everywhere. And you go back in the afternoon, it's been clean. And I just want to thank the committee for what you're doing. Last but not least, I'm going to say this. Sheriff Jay Jones. We have complained about trash, and I got another issue, so I'm just gonna say this. Every time we call to have someone to come out to pick up the trash, you provide people to come out. And we know how long it lasts, 3 weeks. And we'll talk about the stuff that they put on the side of the road. But thank you for sending the people out for Lee Road 188 South. And I just want to thank the committee for that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Tammy Morgan.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
This is my first time being here at the meeting, and when I read it in the newspaper a couple weeks ago about the meeting that we was gonna have here in reference to the litter out in Lochapoka, I was pleased to see that, and I made my way to be able to get here to the meeting. And I live on the south side across the track of 188, 71 Lee Road 398. Last year, I wrote a letter in to the editor about the litter and how people disrespect people's yards and roads as far as the litter goes. Myself, I try to just whenever I can, whether it's on a Saturday, weekday morning, weekday afternoon, whatever, I get out and I pick up my road as often as I can. I can't pinpoint who puts the litter out or whatever, but my thing is, I think that it just makes the neighborhood look really bad. And I'm hoping that it's something that we can implement and put in place to try and get the neighborhoods and the roads looking even better. Whether it's cameras, more often is, assigned a crew from the county or whatever to continue to pick the litter up more often. And not only that, I've called a couple times, and they send the litter control out to pick the trash up. And when I see them out, I thank them because it really, really helps out in the neighborhood. And I just want to say thank you for that. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Peter Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I've been paying taxes for 45 years here in Lee County. My doctors are here. I use the hospital here. Last month I had the occasion to go down to the hospital 2 times. The first time was arranged by my physician for a procedure, and the second time I think I had food poisoning. I'm not sure what it was. But the disparity between the treatment I got from the procedure that my doctor arranged and the treatment that I got at the emergency room, it's hard to express. I've got another problem in that I got the bill and I asked for some specificity. I've written 4 letters to the East Alabama Medical Center business office, have not received, well, I did get a slight clarification, which wasn't a clarification, but no one has talked to me. I finally wrote a certified letter, and they left a message on my machine, but I'm here in Auburn during the week, so I didn't get it. But I'm still waiting on records, and that's only exacerbating the treatment that I got. I mean, HIPAA laws, give me my stuff. We're still trying to resolve this. I'm hoping that somebody will send me some records, and that I can talk with somebody in the business office. But I know my 3 minutes are pretty close to being up, but I'll be back to update y'all, because my understanding is the county supports the hospital, but I can't find that anywhere. And if somebody could let me know if indeed the county does support the hospital, I'd appreciate it. But if this is a county-supported institution, and I'm not going to go into the details of the treatment that I got, but I'll do that later. I think we need to talk to the people on the board and find out why people are not being responsive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So I'm next. As required by our lawsuit settlement, I am to report in public meeting at least 3 times that we have settled a federal election lawsuit. As part of that settlement, we are offering absentee election services here in the courthouse till 6 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So they're actually down there right now working. We will do that for each Tuesday and Thursday in the month of October. The deadline to apply for absentees is October 29th. The last day to return your ballot or postmark your ballot is November 2nd, the Monday prior to Election Day. We held the first of our remote absentee clinics, I'm not sure what word to use, in Smith Station this past Saturday. From 9 to 1 Central Time, we had approximately 80 people take advantage of it there. There will be another in-person absentee voting location in Auburn at the county's satellite office this coming Saturday, the 17th, from 9 to 1 Central Time. We expect a bigger crowd in Auburn this coming Saturday. To date, we've had about 7,500 absentees. That compares to our ever record best of a little over 3,000 4 years ago. And I think that's everything I'm supposed to cover. Thank you. All right, you should have gotten in your packets the minutes from the September 28th meeting and 4 lists of claims, I believe. 1 that have been paid that are awaiting ratification, 1 that are awaiting your approval for payment, and 2 different purchasing card transaction lists. Any questions about the minutes or the claims? And I understand Commissioner Long did not get his packet. Still didn't come today. I don't know. We mail them on Thursday.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is unanimous. We have 1 abstention. Vote of 4 to 0 to 1. Okay, Commissioner LeGrand, littering in Lochapoka.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I get to that, let me just remind everyone that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I think it's very important that we remember the survivors and the ones we've lost along the way. Now to the litter. Ladies and gentlemen, no question that we have a major problem with the litter in Lochapoka, and we need to help try to change the mindset. And we've kicked off a campaign that I'm really excited about. Well, first of all, on November 4th, we're teaming up with the Auburn University ROTC cadets. We'll have 50 cadets on Highway 188 to help pick up trash. But now the thing about it is that we get the trash picked up and it's right back down again. So here is the other part of the plan. Are y'all ready? Mm-hmm. Somebody say I'm ready.
Oh, I'm
Ready.
Okay. Thought you'd never ask. This is what I'm presenting. for the phase one. Everybody see that? Now. We'll see the bottom part here. And Mr. Hardy, I want to thank you for your help on this. Now, it's very important that we let you know that these signs are not coming from the county commission. These are coming from the private sector that are taking pride in the community. Ooh, that sign was heavy. But at any rate, we'll have 2 on 188, 2 on Lee Road, Willis Turk Road, which looks really good, and we want to keep it looking good. And I think it's good that if we do have some violators, that they're fined and prosecuted. Now, hopefully these will be a warning sign, or that will let some people say, okay, if I throw a beer can out of the car, what does that mean? I've been drinking beer. And now, if you get caught, your problems have doubled. Especially if you got some priors, then they've tripled. So we don't want that to happen. So this is the first step. And we want to thank people like PALS and the young ladies out in the community that get out there and pick up paper. We just say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And correct me on this, Ms. Hardy, how many bags of trash were picked up in August?
Yes, sir. In August, our litter control technician with one helper, they worked for 14 days and picked up 109 bags of trash just on the portion of 188 south of Alabama Highway 14.
109 bags of trash.
Yes, sir.
That's totally unacceptable. But we have to work together to help get the mindset changed, because part of what I'm hearing and listening to the residents, friends, and family, we've got people that are coming through that are doing a lot of littering. But if you got diapers on the side of the road, that sounds like we got some residents that are doing that. So we're going to get this kicked off. Let's work together to get the job done.
Hey, I have a question for you.
Okay?
So this November 4th that you're going to have this group of people come out, I mean, what about the community getting involved and churches and all that coming together and doing that the same day and really using the community and the people that really have the pride in Lochapoka? I mean, are they willing to be a part of that? I mean, wouldn't
Oh,
it be-
absolutely. I'm sure. But I just wanted to let the people know that this is what we've got confirmed so far. And then hopefully and prayerfully that this will take off so good that this will be a countywide project.
Okay, I just would love to see encouragement. I would love to encourage some groups in the community to go out there that day as well. and
I agree.
Make it a big Pride in Lochapoka Day or Pride in Poka Day. I mean, it's really fun, and it could be a really good Pride in Poka cleanup day as a community also.
I think we should go with it. That's even better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more fun to pick up trash when there's somebody helping you. I mean, I'd be even willing to get involved in that, so. if I-
Okay. Well, I'll
I
see
will
you
too,
there.
Richard.
You know.
I will
Okay.
too.
Commissioners, head in on that subject, because you got the next one too.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry. I was so caught up on that idea, because I think that's a great idea, getting the community involved. On the recreation, Commissioner Ham and I had a really great meeting with the potential property owner regarding the recreational facility. And we look forward to getting back with him, and I'm getting a plaque later this week to give to Mr. Rindelman for his consideration and feedback and then we'll go from there.
Great.
All right, sir. Coroner Transport Services, Mr. Runderman.
Yes, sir. After the last commission meeting, actually during the last commission meeting, when this was brought up and discussed, after the meeting, and thinking about some of the topics that were brought up and questions that are asked, I got kind of curious, and sometimes I hate when I do that because then I end up causing myself more work. Basically went back and kind of looked closer at exactly how how we were handling the cost associated with the city transport cost. The issue comes up by the way the code statute is written. The coroner is specifically responsible for picking, determining how, the selecting how that's transported. However, there is a specific process regarding the expenditure of funds and how those expenditures are handled. Although you can have a local agreement in place if the commission and the coroner agreed to it. And early on, the process that we had in place was, the way that is in place is that the county would be billed directly, the coroner would provide an itemized expense, then we would bill back all the other agencies involved, and we would receive those reimbursements. The issue came up because we were the main agency paying initially all the costs. The question of the bid law came up that I was a little curious about, but since we were still the initial one making those payments, so I reached out to the state examiners, some of the people that I've known a long time there, and my concern was kind of confirmed when he responded back that yes, regardless of the end, and sometimes you've heard me say this, regardless of the end result, usually the process can be as important as the results. So even though the results would end up being the same, the process was not being followed properly according to the Alabama bid law. Since we are expending the funds directly and exceeding $15,000, these services they have to be bidded out, period. The only way to avoid not having to do that because of a process, the process itself is the coroner would have to actually pay for those expenditures up front and then request reimbursement from the county commission. We actually handle he provides an itemized expense report that we send to the other agencies that then reimburse us. And we're supposed to set funds aside specifically for reimbursing him for providing and paying for those things up front. For us to continue, either we need to follow that process or we need to bid these items out. We're in a new fiscal year, so we haven't crossed over $15,000 yet, but we will, if we are to continue with this one particular transport company, we will have to bid it out. So I'm asking the county commission to either instruct that we'll no longer go with the original arrangement with the coroner, and he is to actually pay for the costs up front, and we follow everything that is under it's basically Title 11, I have it right here. Basically, Title 11, Section 5. It's basically from like 50 to 53 or something like that. I don't have that. I just had to look it up here real quick. But to follow it exactly in the code, if we want to continue with this one particular transport company. If not, I need the commission to instruct for us to go ahead and start preparing bids to bid these services out, especially now since we are in the first month of the new fiscal year.
Mr. Harris, anything to add?
Once I got the notice that he had talked to can I pull that down a little bit? Talked to the Board of Examiners and they issued their opinion. Because it was the first of the year and it was easily to do so, I changed the plan effective October the 1st, which would, the first section of the law says, except where there is an agreement or local law which provides otherwise, the coroner shall be responsible for carrying out the duties as proceeded before. We had an original plan when this got dumped on us many years ago when the state forensics lab, I'll give you a little back history real quick on that. They started cutting their budgets at the state level. They used to come pick the bodies up, they would bring them back. They decided they need to cut their expenses somewhere, so they eliminated the transportation costs, which saved them about $1 million a year statewide. But it dumped it on the counties. Transportation law was devised by the County Commission Association. I was involved in drafting that law to try to come up to make it as fair on everybody as possible. At first, I couldn't find anybody that wanted to do it, not even the funeral homes. Frederick Dean didn't want to do it because he said he didn't have the manpower. Jeff Code offered it, said, we'll do it temporarily till you can get it going. It was a nightmare. They actually lost money on the deal. Eventually, we split it up between them and a couple of other folks, and it still just wasn't doing it. And I was footing the bills, collecting the money, and then having to pay the vendors, which was the funeral homes and that. It was a paperwork nightmare, and I'm sure it's probably a paperwork nightmare for Alice. So then in March of 2019, I entered into an agreement with Hudson Transport Services for transport, which is a private entity. No funeral homes involved. There's no conflict of interest. All the funeral homes locally have reached out to me since this has all started. Are adamant about not wanting a funeral home to handle the transport of bodies for obvious reasons. But back to the part about the bidding it out and everything. Essentially, when I tried to find a transport service, there are just not that many out there. So Hudson is a sole source provider based on the criteria set forth that they would have to provide the service for and the items that they have to provide. So I think we would be okay there. But to make it even easier, and make it easy on the county, effective October the 1, the plan has been changed that each entity that owes the transport service will be billed separately, which means the county will only be responsible for the county cases. Auburn would be billed for their cases, Opelika for theirs, and there's about 5 or 6 cases a year, SBI and Phoenix City PD, that they would have. That should eliminate any problems. Hudson is okay with this, actually, or liked it even better planned, so I'm throwing that out there. I'll answer any questions. I've got numbers on how many, who's carried what, how much money was spent over the last year, since every year since 2017. I know it would eliminate a lot of paperwork and heartache for Alice on having to get the bills, which now they send the bill to me. I verify the charges, approve it, sign it, and then I send it to Alice, and she pays the vendor, and then she has to get the county's money back from the entity whose case it was. Changing it to a separate billing on everybody's part, the county would be only responsible for the county business and everybody else would be responsible for theirs. Any other questions? All the law enforcement agencies I've spoken to are happy with the service. None of them have indicated they want to see any change in how it's done and who's doing it. The person that does go on a lot of them, there's about 5 or 6 employees that work for them. They're former law enforcement or whatever. They know how to act on a scene. Because these scenes, they're not natural deaths. They're scenes that have to go for investigation. And so it needs somebody that actually knows how to conduct themselves on a crime scene.
But that scenario doesn't comport with what you just described to us, does it,
what now?
Mr. Rendelman? Oh, I was talking to Mr. Rendelman. That scenario that Mr. Harris
Well,
is presenting doesn't comport with what you just described, does it?
Well, and again, I saw the email that he sent to you on Friday, and I responded to you yesterday about that. Because my main concern is obviously the county commission, because that's who I work for. And my main thing is making sure that not only do we get the right results, but we also follow the processes. Because like I said, they're as important, sometimes more important than sometimes the results. The issue is that to sit there and claim something as a sole source is a very, very difficult thing to claim. It is a very simple standard, but it's a very difficult standard to meet, because it's the nature of the services, by the very nature of essentially, when there's only one vendor or supplier that, and I'll short, this is straight out of the code, let me paraphrase it a little bit. It says when there's only one vendor or supplier in contractual services, which is by their very nature are impossible to award by competitive bidding, that is the only time you can declare it sole source. The mere fact that there's actually vendors out there that will state that they can do it, that are in the business of doing it, or whatever. I mean, there are vendors in the state, because it took me 10 seconds to type in Google and find where a county in Alabama has bid this stuff year after year after year. So you can't declare, even though you may end up with only one respondent, although it may be not an easy thing to bid, the fact that there is more than one supplier or one more service provider out there, you have to bid it if it meets the criteria for the bid law. My only concern is making sure that the county commission does not cut checks for more than $15,000 for body transport, because if we do, we are supposed to bid it out, period. So, and there's various things that are in the law as far as how this is supposed to be handled, according to the way it is. And the memo that the coroner brought today, I haven't had a really chance to look at it, but again, my main concern is making sure that we do not exceed paying a service provider for these services more than $15,000 in the next fiscal year, because we already did last year. So technically, hopefully, I mean, unfortunately, in my discussion with the examiners, I hope, since I brought to their attention that they will not put it in their audit as being an exception to, hey, you got to bid these things out, because I basically accidentally, I told them what the scenario was and said, yes, you guys were not in compliance with the bid law last year. And my bad, sorry. I don't like for that to happen.
Basically, what you're trying to do is lessen that $15,000 to the commission, to the county,
The county
by billing the entities
I mean,
separately.
it contract, I mean, the law says if there is a plan not already in place, then this will transpire. If we know what this will transpire, if no other plan can be developed, then yes, based on what he found out, I think it's, that's just my opinion. I don't,
So do you have the dollars
Well-
for the last 2 years? What's billed to Auburn, Opelika?
Oh, yeah. No, and well, that's not quite correct, in that the fact is that the way the law is written is the coroner is actually the one who pays for the services directly. And then it gets billed to each agency. Technically, our check would then go, if we followed the code section with absent any agreement, the reimbursement check would actually go to the Bill Harris coroner of Lee County to reimburse him for those costs. Because the thing is that if he did it, if it was handled that way, where he actually fronted the costs, then through the county, the way the law is written, the county actually is the entity that will handle getting reimbursement from the other agencies. The money comes in, then we would kind of cut a check in his official capacity as coroner to reimburse him. And at that point in time, I don't really, as far as the bidding aspect, it doesn't matter, because I'm just looking out for the county commission. The only thing and I did a little bit of research, but didn't go into it, the coroner is not actually listed in the Alabama competitive bid law. So he may not have to bid it. And I don't know, that was something that he will need to look up. I didn't look it up for
I'm
him.
going to seek more clarification, but I wanted to fix it because of what he brought up, so I changed the plan, which I have the right to do. So the county's only responsible for county cases, period.
I'm still bothered by the fact that it's so much more expensive. I don't remember the numbers, but it's like
Well,
40% more.
I'll be honest with you, of all the funeral homes I've talked to around here, they don't want Frederick Dean handling nothing. And I have reason not to. I'd rather not get into in a public meeting. But
That doesn't respond to my comment. My
The
comment was it's so much more expensive.
it's really not. Russell County pays $200 each way.
Well, Bill, 250, 475, I think is what she's saying, is that's a lot more
He can't
expensive.
do it for that because he didn't even ask for the criteria before he had put a figure out there.
Well, I noticed that you mentioned that according to the criteria, that they're sole source. What criteria? Where are they? Do we have the criteria?
I'll get it to you.
And are those state criteria or your criteria?
My
or-
criteria, I get to set the
Okay.
rules on
All
transport.
right. And Roger, do we have a copy of his agreement, his contract?
I
No,
can get
I
it to
don't,
you.
no,
No.
no.
If Mr. Harris wants to use who he wants to use, why don't we just let him pay them?
And that's all my point is. I'm
not paid enough to put that kind of money. I did that one time, and at one time I had 15.
Well, then maybe you need to look
Y'all
at
don't pay me
bidding this
enough.
thing out, because I don't want to be paying for
You're not
something
gonna pay for it.
that you did.
You're not paying, you're only gonna pay for the
Yeah,
county cases.
I hear you talking.
But we're still paying for the county cases.
Do what?
Well,
We're still paying for the county cases
The-
that,
You have to, I mean,
Well,
the law says each law enforcement entity of jurisdiction has to foot the cost of
I
transportation.
understand that, but what we're saying is it's either a $250 cost or a $475 cost, so we're trying
He
to save
can't,
the
he
county
can't do
money.
it based on the criteria. He can't be there. I've dealt with him before, and it just didn't work out. It takes over an hour and a half to get there. You gotta be there within an hour. Has to respond with two people. He didn't come with two people.
Well, if Mr. Harris is adamant we do it his way, then I think Mr. Harris needs to pay him,
and again, that,
and then the county reimburse him.
because the only thing, then that's the only way it's supposed to work by. If there is no agreement in place, that's the way it's supposed to work by.
Well,
code.
and that's what the auditor said, and that's what I'm
But there's
listening
an
to.
agreement in place.
I don't care about your agreement.
Well, that's
I'm-
the
I'm-
law.
I'm reading what the
That's
auditor
the law.
said.
I get to decide. You don't get to decide.
Well-
And
Well,
that's
it doesn't-
fine, but you've got criteria. You're saying he didn't meet them because he didn't have them, and nobody's got them but you.
He knew what the criteria was. He could beat it before.
Could we have a copy of the
Yeah, I'll
criteria?
get that if you want to make a
Okay.
copy.
And a copy of the agreement? It might be helpful for the county if we are all talking from the same page. All right, I'll make a copy and give it to everybody.
Because here it is, even though, and this is where dealing with sometimes Alabama law gets real fun. He is right, he has the choice of selecting who to transport. However, if we pay for it directly and exceeds 15,000, we have to bid it out. It overrides his ability, I mean, it doesn't matter. The bid law will trump that provision in that law.
Well, then I would like to
Do we have the right to tell him that he pays them directly and we reimburse him?
Well, then if you want to end the agreement, yes, you can. Because that's exactly the way the code is written now. how
I'm
to
going to
handle
play
it.
counterpoint here a minute. I'm not sure we have the right to tell him, because I'm clear where the code says coroner's decision. But I think what we do have is the right to tell Mr. Runderman what to pay, what not to pay.
Right.
Really, what I think you're asking is, if it comes in and Roger's satisfied that we're protected, pay the bill. And if it comes in and Roger doesn't think it protects us, don't pay the bill. I mean, that's how we
The
get
way-
to where we
I
got
don't
to
wanna
be to
get hung
protect the
out.
county.
Well, I mean, the way it would work, and whether he's actually paid the vendor or not, I don't, again, that's him. I'm more interested in us. If he turns around and say, you have a handful of bills that you got to have this week or not? Okay, we have 3. If he turns around and gives us an itemized statement saying, here's the 3 that need reimbursement, we turn around, we would pay him in his public official capacity. Him and his deal between him and the transport companies, between him and the transport company. That's very clear in the code section. But what becomes an issue, and that's what my issue was that last year we paid way more than $15,000 directly from the Lee County General Fund to an individual company. That alone puts the bid law in effect. So regardless of who he's picked, we still had to bid it. In other words, his ability to pick, once we go into the bid law, trumps anything that law allows him to do.
But
So
what we don't
last
have
year-
to do is bid to pay him, is what you're saying.
No.
We pay him,
No,
we don't
no,
have to
no,
bid.
No.
Yeah.
No, well, I'm just saying, no, if we paid him directly, we would not have to bid it,
Yeah,
period.
yeah, I get you.
Now, whether he has to bid it or not in his official capacity, I do not know. That's something that somebody else will have to answer, because I'm not researching the corner, I'm researching for the county commission. But based on the way it is set up, the bottom line, it was very clear, that was made very clear to me by the examiners, was we should have bidded this service last year, period. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, there's no way around it, this should have been bidded last year. So, and the
Last year,
issue
the
is,
first
say,
year,
even if
had
we
a
stay,
single vendor.
if we even stay over $15,000, I mean, in other words, if each entity stays below $15,000, that does not become an issue. But then if one of us goes over $15,000, it's an issue for that entity if that entity is paying that transport company directly. Again, this goes back to, it's not necessarily about the end result, it's the process itself that is the issue. So that's what I'm trying to resolve. The bottom line is, if he claims there's only one company to do it, fine, there's only one company to do it. If we want to keep doing it the way we've always done it, we need to put bid specs out together, we need to bid it. If that is the only company that can meet the bid specs, that's the only company that meets the bid specs. But you have to give other companies that do this business, because by nature, it is not, by very nature, impossible to award. It is not an impossible bid to do. It may be difficult, you may have limited responses, but it is a biddable service. You just have to, the only thing if the commission wanted to bid it and keep doing it the way we want to do it, the first thing I would do is ask the coroner to please provide specifications so we can put a bid out. If we wanted to continue doing it exactly the way we're doing it today. Because and if we continue doing the payment, it doesn't matter what kind of agreement he has with the company, because that agreement's not with us. We're the ones that are actually paying the bills and paying the bills. And if he's paying the bills first, it's not our issue anymore.
I think we can pay him, reimburse him whatever amount without any issue about bid law or any of that for us, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Is any action to be taken by the commission?
If we don't take action, are we just going to let it keep going just like it's going?
No,
Are we going to be
that's already
sitting-
changed.
Are we going to be
It
sitting
changed
here next
October
year?
1st.
Do
Changed
what?
He
October
changed
1st.
it October 1st.
County's only responsible for county cases, period.
Yeah.
They won't, they
And
won't
that will
write,
keep us under the 15,000.
We don't know.
We don't
What-
know.
what
never
if-
been over
So
15,000 since 2017, just for the county.
What's going to happen when we get to the point to where it's going over 15,000?
We either need to bid it, or if we don't catch it, it could be another audit fine.
Well, it's too late then.
And that's the thing about it, is if we suspect that it's gonna cross over $15,000, we should bid it now.
Well, a tornado, the pandemic, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think we can, I agree with Gary. I don't think we can take a chance on getting hung out on this. That bothers me.
I mean, the choice is either we put up bid specs, start putting bid specs together to put out a bid, or he pays up front and we reimburse from there.
And he's not willing to pay up front, right?
I don't have funds to pay up front. Y'all don't pay me enough.
He's just willing to bill each entity separately.
I mean, I changed it
That's what
to,
you're changing to do.
so nobody would be over $15,000 based on what he says is the reason that it violated the bid law.
I
So I
still
changed
don't,
it to each entity, because each entity is separate.
I still don't like that it's so much more, that the taxpayers aren't getting the biggest bang for their buck.
Well, if we bid it out and we go with the lesser amount, it probably won't go over
I mean, Mr.
15,000.
Dean sat
If we
here and told
don't bid
us
it out,
what
and
he'd
it's
do.
the higher amount, Sheila, it probably will go. You're exactly right. Yeah.
Is any action to be taken by the commission? All right, sir, thank you. Judy Lockhart, is this what you've already told us about 18857?
We're gonna put out his fire first, okay? We're gonna put out his fire, all right?
Say that again?
Excuse me?
Say that again?
I said, we're gonna put out his fire that he had built up. We're gonna do something else, okay? To Mr. Richard LeGrand, thank you. To Mr. Richard LeGrand, I want to thank you on behalf of the Lochapoka community for the service that you have rendered since you have taken office. I know in the last, probably 8-10 months, you've been to Lochapoka probably 9 times as I can remember, maybe more, because of road issues and litter issues. Again, we want to thank you for what you have done for the community.
Thank you.
And to Commissioner Ms. Sarah Brown, we actually have some people here in the building now that have collected trash, and we do it on a basis before you took office as a commissioner on several years. Matter of fact, I would like for Keisha Chapman to please stand. She spearheaded at the beginning of the year for Dr. Martin Luther King, because she was going to be working on that Monday. And we asked Sheriff Jay Jones, would he provide deputies for Highway 188 South? And he provided a deputy, so they wouldn't run over us picking up trash. We did 19 bags. About 11 people stopped and helped us. We have Ms. Pat Conover, has outside of the town, 188. She has one end, and I have the other end. We pick up and we get people involved. We've had churches, we've had Boy Scouts, and different things like that. But I understand that it's a great idea, but we have to be now careful about calling so many people together during COVID-19. So it has to be, it can be done. It's great, but it needs to be structured. And so somebody has to have a plan for that. We've heard a lot about trash, and I'm just going to, trash environment issue that we've talking about, Lee Road 188 South. The threat of waste to the environment, we know, poses health and safety. And it's a huge, all over the world. But when it hits home, like Lochapoka, it hurts. Litter is bad for the environment, and we know it. Whether it's cans, a bottle, it is something that it wastes our natural resource. And when we say literally cans and bottles, that's just being discarded on the roadside instead of going to the proper place. I'm talking about Lee Road 188 South. If you come down Highway 14 and you've been there in the last 2 years, but especially now, you see car tires, everything of that sort. Even on Highway 14. On 188, baby diapers, beer cans, beer bottles, furniture, mattress. When they pick up, they can tell you that. They have all of this that someone claims drops off their trucks. It looks like it's placed in the ditch. You can pick it up, they pick it up. 3 weeks later, it's the same way. Picture this. You come into your home, your subdivision, 3 blocks before you get there, it looks like white cotton. It's so much trash. Once you cross the road, the railroad, 188 South. If you've been down the road, you know what I'm talking about. I know those that have seen it. It's uncalled for. We know that exposure to hazard waste can cause human health. And it says that the children are most vulnerable. That's where the book stops there. We got to do something. And the sign is good to say violators will be prosecuted, but who is going to decide how much they're going to be fined? I've seen $250 if you litter. I've seen $500. So who designate how much people will be fined? And I think the sooner they know that, the better, because we're just doing a repeated cycle. They put it down, we pick it up, we call the county picks it up, and within 1 month, it's back out there again. So something has to be done. And to Commissioner LeGrand, we embrace your idea for your project because we want them to stop littering in Lochapoka. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
May I add that my recommendation would be $500. So I think that's something we need to work on.
Bill, isn't that set by the state?
I'm unclear on where the authority lies to set that. Mr. Runman, are you or the sheriff either one happen to know? According to the sheriff, up to the presiding judge.
I mean, isn't it a Class C misdemeanor? Isn't that the same thing that we were dealing with, or is this different? Okay, because when they were getting, when people were illegally dumping at the dump sites in Smith Station, it came out that it was a Class C misdemeanor. And they were paying close to $500 with the fine and court cost. Plus, they now had that on their record. So is that not the same for what would be going on in Lochapoka if they got a ticket for that?
It depends on the level.
Okay.
Circumstances, and of course, the judge hears the case before would be the one who determines.
Right, okay.
Did you say it was a different level? I'm sorry, you said it was a different level? Oh,
I believe that's right, depending upon the circumstances.
Which judge would that come before?
Either the district judges, Judge Bush or Judge Speakman.
Seems like maybe we need to have a concerted effort to have some fines. I know we had a situation in Auburn with, unrelated, but relating to renting out to students in areas that shouldn't be. And so every several years, we just have a sweep and bring some of those people into court, and then it'd stop it for several years. So maybe we need to have some fines and let the word get out.
I agree with that totally.
Well, it may take some type of public service campaign that we do. And Hannah, y'all could, in the newspaper there, y'all, OA News also, y'all could help us with that. And of course, Richard's got colleagues that are in radio. They could help us and make sure that we have a campaign out that says, you know, if you see something like that, call it in. And here's a number that you call, and then let the sheriff do his job and Judge Speakman do his job. I think that some of that gets publicized. People think twice about throwing stuff out. I personally do not see people throwing trash out. I see all the trash. But I'm just like, when do they throw it out here? Well, Jay told me they throw it out at night. Well, I guess so, because I don't ever see it. See something fly out of the back of a pickup truck every once in a while. That's about it.
Commissioner, this is Class B, Mr.
Class D.
Class B.
Class B? Okay,
And it's defined in punishment increases for subsequent offenses.
okay.
All right, Ms. Price, you're up.
Thank you all for letting me speak to you tonight. I'm coming before you tonight you all have in your packet a proposal from a local group, Global Canine Protection Group. As you all know, in the last few months, we've had some changes in the policy here at the courthouse with some of the mask and some of the protection that we've had to have here with the mandates, or not the mandates, but the orders that the governor has put out for under the COVID. And we've had to stretch the poor sheriff's department, thank you, Sheriff Jones, it's about as thin or thinner than he can about handle at the courthouse and in our 2 satellite offices. And I've had sort of looked out and looked at some of the other resources that we have available. And there's one company here that's local that I think can handle our 2 satellite offices. And it's, like I said, it's Global Canine Protection. And they actually provide protection services for TSA for the airports. And all I'm asking is that they provide a person at our Smith Station and at our Auburn satellite offices, and take some of this burden off of Sheriff Jones, and at least through while we're under this pandemic, where we're having to ask people to provide to wear masks, and that seems to be the biggest problem. At this point, we're, especially in Auburn, I'm having to take our supervisor in the Auburn office is actually having to work at the front door to make sure people are wearing their mask. And you know, because you ask them to wear it, and they're not going to sometimes unless you tell them they have to have it. And it's become a challenge. And and this is now, we're in the busy time of our year. With the tax bills, or as I lovingly call them, our love letters that went out last week. And people are getting their tax bills. They're coming in to pay their taxes and their property taxes. And we're having to have someone at the front door to make sure that they have their mask on. And Sheriff Jones has, until the schools opened and students were going into the schools now full-time, he was able to put school resource officers at the front desk, at the front doors, but now he's not able to do that. And I understand it's stretching you to put someone at the Smith Station office, and it's just putting a burden on his office. And if you all would approve this, I certainly would appreciate it for at least the time being, and maybe on further past that. But right now, we'll have CARES Act money, I understand, to pay for it for the time being, as long as we have that money available.
Will you update everyone on what we discussed, because we had
Yeah.
a meeting earlier.
Yeah.
I was meeting with her
Yes.
and the revenue
Commissioner
office,
Brown and I met earlier, and thank you for coming by and looking at what we do. And my desk isn't always that bad, it usually
It was
is. but
very
it's-
organized.
And so, we're going to have the officer without the dog. Mr. Rendleman wouldn't let me have the dog.
Without the dog?
Would you-
Without the dog.
Okay, that was going to be my question.
Yeah,
changes it
without the
a lot.
dog.
Without the dog?
Without the
Oh,
dog,
okay,
yeah,
thank
without the dog. And so-
It's extra for the dog.
It's extra for the dog. It's
Well,
extra for the
just
dog.
the image
And
of
you can't
county
pet the
courthouse
dog.
being
Yeah.
controlled by guard dogs
Can't
was
have
a
the
little
dog.
trouble.
Can't
I
pet
can't
the
have the
dog.
dog. And so I kind of like the idea of the dog. But we will have the officer there without the dog. And they will be, and they'll be here at the courthouse when we're open, not at the courthouse, but at the 2 satellite offices, one in Smith Station and one in Auburn.
Is this quote for each location, or is this total for 3?
No, for each location, for each location.
So it's times 2.
So that's,
Yeah, times 2.
And the CARES money will take care of this?
yeah,
Yes, uh-huh.
150,000 a year, but we get fronted and then get reimbursed, right?
Yes, because I mean, this is clearly, one of the things that the CARES Act clearly indicates is any actions you take that are in response that you would not have done if, I mean, that you have to do that are
Yeah.
in response to COVID that you would not have incurred. And this would clearly fall underneath.
Wouldn't incur but for. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, that's the
Yeah.
reason why we're referring to this.
Yeah.
So, but the one thing that if you are to approve this, I do need the motion needs to be contingent on review and satisfaction of the agreement, because we just got it right before the meeting. I just handed it to Mr. Martin. In fact, he probably doesn't know that and he knows I handed it to him, but he probably doesn't know why I handed it to him. So I need to give him a chance to review it, make sure we're fine with it, but I don't see any problem with it, but I do want to make it contingent on.
And the insurance will have
Yeah, we do
Lee
have-
County as additional insurance.
Yes, they have already forwarded the insurance policy that they will have us named in, so.
So do you want to wait to vote?
No, we don't want to wait, have to wait another meeting if we can get it resolved this week. So that way, because again, as you pointed out, the sheriff's office is extremely thin. He's down a good bit on his sworn deputies, and we do not have the capability of covering the salary officers right now.
It's, the manpower is killing him, and
Well, I'll make the motion that we approve this contingent on Mr. Martin doesn't have an issue with any of this.
I'll second it. I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
The locations say Opelika in Smith Station.
it says Opelika, and that was just a communication. It was going to be Smith Station. We have somebody here in the
No,
courthouse.
but it's going to be Auburn and Smith Station.
Auburn
is
and
that
Smith
correct?
Station,
Okay.
yes, uh-huh.
On the client location, it did say Opelika.
Yeah.
so.
Well, I think in one place it refers to SS Smith Station too, but I
Yeah,
think.
it does.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
Have a motion and second. Further discussion.
I have further discussion. You want to hire guards because people won't wear masks when they're coming to take the, or give you money when you're extorting your,
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
because somebody's not going to.
Motion's unanimous.
Hey,
You are stealing the money
Thank
from
you.
their property.
Mr. Fair,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Renneman, you got diesel tanks.
Yes, sir. Next,
Right now.
next item is we have
You should all be ashamed of yourself. You should all be
the,
We're ashamed of you.
Oh,
I'm sorry, but he needs to go to jail. I'm sorry, but he needs to be arrested
he
for
needs
that.
to be barred.
I've had about enough of him.
I mean, this is just,
Not like the fact that you disrespect every woman in here with the language you use.
yeah,
Not that he respected me as a man, but every woman in here, he's totally disrespected. I don't want to.
Tell me about diesel tanks, Mr. Renneman.
yes, sir. Basically, in front of you, in your packet, you had included a agreement for a diesel tank removal and closure assessment. We are moving forward, or attempting to move forward with the EMA project. If you remember, that was the last, that is the last phase of the downtown master plan that we approved many, many years ago, which included the meeting center and, of course, the Justice Center, the courthouse annex, and of course, the renovations we did here. EMA had to be pushed to the back because of funding. I think we're very close. We already have funds set aside. I believe, once I finish my year-end assessment, we'll have more funds to at least go ahead and move forward with the project. But just like with the annex, one of the first things we have to do is take care of the past. And the past is underground storage tanks, and there is one. This one actually was for a long time being utilized by EMA when we used to have a diesel generator that was in the building that was replaced many, many years ago. I can't remember how long ago, but it's been a long time. But there was a diesel tank underground that was utilized for that generator. That tank has to be removed before we can even consider starting on the project. So essentially, this is the first step into actually moving forward with the EMA expansion and renovation project. The total estimated project for the actual removal of the tank, and then we have to do some monitoring, underground water monitoring to make sure the soil testing and water ground testing to make sure we don't have any other mitigation that we would need to incur. We were very fortunate so far that we have not had to do that anywhere, because we've had to do this several times on this property, but hopefully we'll be successful in not having that problem here in this one. But it will cost up to about $20,000 for the initial phase, and hopefully that will be it. But I do need you to approve this agreement so we can move forward with that tank remediation before we can start the EMA project.
Move for approval.
I second it.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimous. Mr. Hardy, finally your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the commission, the Highway Department brings before you tonight the acceptance of Sedona Ridge subdivision for maintenance into our highway system. This subdivision is located in District 4. It's off of Lee Road 250 near its intersection with Lee Road 379. This is a very large subdivision. It incorporates about 1.5 miles of new infrastructure, new roadways that have been inspected by the Highway Department. This subdivision has undergone the 2-year maintenance period. It's actually undergone much more than that, as our regulations require either 2 years or the subdivision being up to 70% built out. This subdivision is, I think, is approximately 89 lots. It's one of the larger ones we've dealt with. This began in 2014, and so they've just now recently reached the 70% build out. In February of this year, they reached that milestone, if you will. Our engineers got with the developer, inspected it, made a list of deficiencies and things that need to be corrected. The developer has corrected those. We've inspected it and performed the final inspection on October 5th, 2020. All improvements have been completed, and so therefore it is my recommendation that the commission accept Lee Roads 2206, 07, 08, 09, and 2210 for permanent maintenance by the Highway Department. Again, this is in Commission District 4.
I'd like to move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimous.
Thank you. I've got the next item with Halawaka Cove subdivision, Phase 1. This is a subdivision that is also in Commission District 4 up in the Lake Harding area. This is a subdivision that a developer is proposing to do onto a dirt road in the county. Our office has met with them and discussed some requirements. We had some initial concerns with how they originally wanted to subdivide the property and the traffic generation that would happen on that roadway. We met with the developer, spoke with them, and they came back with a modified plan to do this. So the plat before you tonight, for the final plat for the Halawaka Cove subdivision, has them taking one lot, breaking it into 3, and their intention is to sell the first 2, and then the parent parcel will remain until they make the improvements we discussed would need to be made prior to further subdividing it with the traffic that would be generated on this small dirt road. Again, this is in Commission District 4. This does not have any new infrastructure in the subdivision. This is fronting the county road.
I know we've had a lot of discussion with the developer there and compromises, and I told Justin today I appreciate them finding a solution to the problem that this guy had in developing, and I appreciate them working with this guy rather than just slamming the door on him. And there was a solution, and they worked it out, and that's what government's supposed to do. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and second. Further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is unanimous. Ms.
Thank you.
Smith.
Good evening. Assistant Chief, Fire Chief Daniel Sexton has made a request from the Smith Station Fire and Rescue that the county make a purchase that will allegedly be a CARES reimbursement. It is for 3 monitors and 3 auto pulse for the 3 ambulances they have. The total cost is $166,000, $166,939.53. Assistant Chief Sexton has done a lot of homework and made phone calls, emails, discussed this with people regarding reimbursement by CARES. I did some of my own. There's a lot of gray area with the CARES Act and reimbursements and things that are not clearly defined, like the security that you guys just voted on was. What we would like the commission to vote on tonight and make a decision on is whether you would like to allow the county to make that purchase. We file reimbursement with the CARES Act for reimbursement. I will tell you that he has gone another step with their board and has it in writing that if the county is not reimbursed under the CARES Act, that they will pay for it at the end of the day if it's not reimbursed. It's the upfront cost that we want to make sure, if you feel that that is a valid COVID-related expense under the CARES Act. The CARES Act is very specific about things that are related to COVID. There's a packet, in your packet or on your chair tonight, there should have been pictures of what that item is.
Rita, let me just add, there was a short one in your packet and a bigger one on your bench today.
Thank you. The reason that Assistant Chief Sexton is here and Chief Joe Walden is here and Dwight is here, in case you have specific questions about the equipment, this is just what he's emailed and inquired about, asked a lot of questions about. The CARES Act is specific about who can pay and file reimbursements, and it does need to go through the county. They can't do it on their own as a separate entity.
So have ambulance transports increased since COVID?
That would be a question
Is that how we
for-
would justify it? Or?
Well,
That's my question too, Daniel.
come on up here.
How do we tie this to COVID as opposed to standard ambulance work?
So the justification that I sent to the state CARES Act money people in the comptroller's office points out the section of the CARES Act that says it's for equipment used to treat CARES. I explained in that justification how the equipment was used to treat CARES patients. For instance, the AutoPulse devices that do CPR, they are used if care patients are having respiratory arrest, at least a cardiac arrest. It's safer for the patient. They have better outcomes because it does consistent pressure. You can keep them on it even while you're moving on things like that. It's also safer for the first responders in the ambulance because instead of being down in their face doing it, CPR compressions, which obviously are causing droplets to come out of the mouth, the compressions are done by the machine. Same thing with the monitor. That is used to monitor their heartbeat, their SpO2 levels. In the event of cardiac arrest, it's used for defibrillation, which is shocking. Most people know it as shocking. Things like that. So those are the justifications that I sent to the comptroller's office and said, you know, this is how these would be used for CARES patients. And so in there, in the actual thing, the CARES Act, it said equipment or services that are used to treat CARES patients or, I'm paraphrasing now, increase services to better treat CARES patients, so, or people with COVID-19, it's not CARES patients.
Right.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Sexton or Ms. Smith?
Is there a list of equipment out there of items that are COVID, that are covered under the CARES Act, or is this?
Not specific. It's generic.
It's generic.
You have to be able to tie it back to actually being utilized for COVID, an influx, an increase, if you will. The PPE, for example, that's definitely reimbursable. There are gray areas in this. However, based on the information that's been provided, I need you guys to decide whether that's an expense you want to front, and we try to get the reimbursement, and if not, like I said, there's going to be a signed document in place. I've spoken with Mr. Rendelman about it, and
Do we have
in the
anything
event-
in writing about if it's not approved by CARES? Do we have an agreement with them?
From them, we have, where their board met, but the other agreement, Mr. Rendelman and I spoke, we were going to wait to see how you vote, and then he would discuss that with Mr. Martin.
Yeah, let me kind of give you a little background on this, so you could better understand what it is that we're trying to propose. And I'll give Mr. Sexton a lot of credit. He did a lot of legwork on this. The issue that we do have is that, and he, like I said, based on some initial information he got, is it at least, again, from the comptroller's office, said that they say that based on their interpretation, it would cover it. That the CARES Act would cover this equipment. However, the one caveat that you have to be very careful with, and that's one of the reasons us and some other counties have been very reluctant on the CARES Act right now to get reimbursement, is we're waiting for better guidance, more clarification, not necessarily from the state, but from the federal government, because those are the ones, they're the ones that will come back and audit this at some point in time. And the way the law was passed in Washington, it's very specific that if they change their mind, or they don't, in other words, they're the final say on it, and they could actually say one day something's good and the next day say it's not good.
They're doing that with election stuff too.
But as they define it more, as we start nailing them down more, it becomes clear. The state is kind of taking a hands-off approach to it, even though they're giving guidance, because they're going to make you sign. If we apply for this, if they purchase it, we apply for reimbursement, we may get the money. But the state comptroller's office is making us sign an affidavit saying that if the federal government comes back and says, no, this piece of equipment clearly was it did not help to the level we expected to help for COVID issues, the state says they don't, even though the state's being held accountable, they're making us pay it back. So the state doesn't care. In other words, the state has no skin in the game. We get reimbursement, it's declared ineligible, we pay it back. All we're looking for here is, because right now, as it stands, they're saying it's reimbursable. Like I said, Mr. Sexton's done a great job of kind of make me feel better about it. But especially if if Smith Station Fire and Rescue backs up our obligation, that if all of a sudden they come back and say, no, you got to pay it back, and they pay us back for us having to pay it back, I'm fine proceeding that way. In fact, I would hope, and I didn't want to put an agreement together unless the commission was on board, was ready to proceed with this, because I wasn't going to waste a whole lot of time putting this agreement together. Because one of the things that we can do as part of the agreement is, if it is have to be paid back, instead of them having to fork out $160,000 at one time, actually come up with some sort of agreement that we would actually pay it, come up with a reimbursement plan out of the fire fee that we send on a regular basis to them. So that way there would be a payment plan to pay us back if we have to do that. That's the reason why I didn't have a problem with putting this in front of you if you want to try to help them out. In other words, we're kind of like going to be the bank for them, for an interest-free loan that hopefully the federal government will pay for. But if they don't pay for it, they're going to end up paying us back.
So what if federal government gives us half of what they've allotted to us?
I don't think that's going to be the issue. The issue is they're going to, first of all, I don't want to, part of the issue is that they did this, the state did this allocation where based on how much the state of Alabama got, they allocated a certain amount to every entity. We were allocated something like $4.3 million. We are not going to use $4.3 million. And there's just not, we don't need, I mean, it was just an allocation they did. So I would feel whatever we're going to get reimbursement for, they'll give us reimbursement. The question will come back later is down the road, after we're through the tunnel and we're on the other side of this, when the feds start coming out and doing their audits and they start going through things, if they come across this and flag it, they may come back and say, because they're putting language in there to allow them to do that. So if somebody comes in and does something that's clearly, after look, in other words, when hindsight's 20/20, they can go, no, sorry, regardless of what we even said 18, 24 months ago, we now know this had nothing to do, this really did not help with addressing COVID. You got to pay us back, even though we said it was okay 18 to 24 months ago.
It's my understanding, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that it can be up to 5 years from now, just like with federal declaration money.
Yes.
Up to 5 years. They could come back 4 years and 11 months and say, by the way, Lee County, we're going to need you to, that's not eligible. So, but we do have, like you said, we do have that other contingency in place, thanks to them, if you guys vote that way.
And this pricing at $166,939, I mean, this is best pricing.
It's a specific kind of equipment. It's the best way for me to explain it. It's a specific kind of equipment.
Well, I have no doubt that's going to help save some lives. I think you mentioned it to me like 9 months ago when you came out to my place and we said, I know Commissioner Brown has been out there and talked with you about it, and I think you've talked to all of us about it. Gary, you've been involved in it.
Yeah, so the reason, the main reason that we have been talking about this so long is the current cardiac monitors that we have are being end-of-lifed by Zoll, so we have no choice but to buy new ones. Originally, it was going to be December 31st. They did add some extra months to it because of COVID to give people time. So that's why we had been working on it for so long. And then once the CARES money come in to play, I said, well, this may be the perfect time to pay for these without having to use local tax dollars. I was also going to add that Montgomery City Fire, they ordered 11 of these, both of these devices, with CARES money reimbursement in mind. So we're not the only people that have talked to the state and said, hey, this is a good thing for CARES. And
Well, I agree
asked for
with Roger.
permission.
You've certainly done your homework and the work on this,
Yeah.
and I applaud you for doing that.
Thank
But
you.
this is you. You do things like this all the time, and thank you so much for what you do for the community.
Thank you.
You're a good man.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to that too, that through our conversations, I do know that Commissioner Lawrence was looking into this a long time ago, prior to his illness. So I feel confident that he would like to see something happen.
I agree.
And again, I'd like to say too, I mean, this fire department is volunteer. It's pretty amazing to me that people volunteer their time, and these gentlemen here, that they do this every day without pay. So I'd just like to say thank you too.
And it's getting harder to get volunteers than it used to be too, huh, Joe? Yeah.
And I'd like to say that
Normally-
having taken a recent ambulance ride,
Yeah.
it does give you a certain peace to see that high-tech equipment there on board.
And normally, we would defer to Commissioner Long to make this motion, but he serves on the board with this fire department, so he felt like an abundance of caution, he should recuse himself from this one. So we would need a motion from someone else on a commission to approve.
I'll make a motion.
I'd like to second it.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. Thank you, sir. All right, Neil, you're saving us money, just, Is that right?
That is right.
Okay.
Commissioners, Chairman, in your packet should be some information detailing the refinancing of the 2013 series warrant. 2013 was issued for the Justice Center expansion, and now is a good time to refinance it with the interest rates. The main page to look at is the page with the heading Savings. It shows the year-to-year savings on it and the total at the bottom.
Any questions from Mr. Siriak?
So this is just strictly refinancing, is that it? It's not extending the time? It looks like the payments are going to increase after 2023, but they were going to increase anyway. And so it definitely looks like a $30,000+ a year savings, is that correct?
That is correct. This is actually paid out of the Justice Center, a good portion of it. Unfortunately, the court fee out there does not generate the money that the court system told us to generate. So the general fund is having to fit the bills, and they say the general fund will see a savings each year on this, so the other money can go other places.
Yeah, I think it's a good
No-brainer.
plan.
Yeah. Just form of a motion?
Yeah,
Sure, I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second.
Thank
Further
you.
discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimous. Ms. Norris? Let's see. Oh, it's still a month, almost a month.
Yeah, November 2nd.
It's going to be Councilwoman Norris.
Yes, sir. To the chairman and members of the commission, my purpose today is to present educational reimbursement for Christopher Kyle Maxwell, who is a deputy sheriff with the Sheriff Department. Mr. Maxwell has 2 courses that he is presenting for pre-approval. Capstone Project of Homeland Security and Introduction to Homeland Security. You should have copies of both of the forms in your packets. So I stand before you today to ask you to provide pre-approval to Mr. Maxwell for educational reimbursement.
Move for approval.
Second?
I did have a question, though.
Sure.
Motion and second.
Can I ask a question? Is there a minimum grade required that he has to make before he gets reimbursed on this?
A B.
A second?
A B.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion unanimous.
Thank you.
Election's fast approaching. Y'all please make your plans. Election day portends to be somewhat busy. Our goal is no longer than an hour wait. Some of the larger precincts, we're still scrapping. Appointing board meets tomorrow. I think there's 400 poll workers to be appointed. Compared to July, had 210. So it's going to be a big day. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before we go, I want to ask one question. Aren't these meetings streaming live?
Yes, sir.
So that outburst just went right out?
Was broadcast.
Yes, broadcast.
Well, I don't know. That's got to stop. And,
He's the very reason that we need security there.
yeah.
I mean, because he's the type of person that would cause the problem coming into the satellite office.
I'm asking, as one commissioner sitting here, I'm not asking for the whole commission, but I'm asking as one commissioner sitting here that be dealt with on a permanent basis, and we don't have to endure that anymore. I'll be honest with you, I have absolutely had it with that. I'm fearful of the guy because I think he's dangerous. And I'll say it publicly.
Well, I agree. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say bye.
Bye.
Thank y'all for being here.
Man.